What was your worst job interview? The interviewer was just stone cold. I tried to work in some small chit-chat to break the ice, but the most I got was a smirk. Then came the technical questions. I botched every question, and each time he gave me a hard no, then proceeded to condescendingly explain why I was wrong. Luckily I landed a job with a different company shortly after, but man, that interview really destroyed my confidence. Had the same experience. Then he proceeded to berate me for not having a 4.0, saying clearly I needed to study more and I was obviously out partying too much and not learning anything. I had like a 3.6, not a 0.6. One of my best professors told me GPA doesn't matter anymore. In the most challenging classes, students who cheats and not learn anything can get a perfect score, while the honest one studies hard to get the minimum passing score. One cuts effort to only pass the class, while the other one puts in effort to learn the materials. Partway through the interview, the boss lady had something come up and got her assistant to show me around while she was busy. As soon as we were out of earshot, this guy tells me to get out while I can. Apparently the boss was a slave driver on a sinking ship, and either that was true and I should leave, or this guy is insane and I should leave. So in the second part of the interview I declined the offer. That set the boss off like a firework, which made me think the guy's warning was sincere. It was the first time I turned down a job and felt kinda empowering, so her venom didn't stick, and I had a strawberry milk waiting for me outside that topped it off. I took vacation days to interview, bought my own plane ticket, and paid for my own hotel. First thing the interviewer said was, "I have no intention of hiring you. This is just a courtesy because I knew your brother." I had 8 more hours left in my interview day. It was painful. They ended up offering me the position many weeks down the road because they couldn't fill the position. I politely declined and got a very passive-aggressively worded survey to fill out explaining why I passed. Edit: I am an eye surgeon. This was for a training position at an Ivy League institution. I had a really big opportunity for a job with Siemens Corporation sometime after I graduated from college for a technical job that would have paid a lot of money. It was a multi-interview job and I actually got interviewed by 3 different people. Each one I was a nervous wreck, but somehow nailed them and just stayed confident. Finally they send me for the final interview at their headquarters, so I show up prepared. Early, suit and tie, certs and paperwork, etc. I am sitting in this fancy lobby waiting for the interviewer to come get me, and another dude walks in dressed for an interview just like me. I figured he was here for another job, so we had a friendly chat while we waited for our interviewers to show up. This was clearly an older, more experienced guy. Finally interviewer shows up and is surprised to see us, saying they accidentally scheduled their interviews for the same time. So he takes the older gentleman and tells his employee to take me and we would be interviewed separately. At this point everything is falling apart. I am not being interviewed by the man I showed up to talk to. Instead, this employee dressed in odd shirt takes me downstairs to the cafeteria and asks me a handful of quick questions in a very unprofessional setting before letting me go. It's like they decided who to hire before the interview even began. It was a huge letdown. Yeah, as much as I like Siemens products, I've grown to hate a lot about it as a company. I was put forward for a job with them that I would have moved 3 hours to do it. I have a phone interview and the hiring manager essentially told me I had 0 experience, that they'd need her knowledge, and that my salary would be a lot lower than what I expected, and I was happy to take a pay cut to do that job. He even went to lengths to explain how a person getting his bachelor's degree now is more valuable than I'd be. I just replied that if a person with a master's in engineering and more than 10 years working with their products wasn't enough, then clearly I wasn't the guy for the job and good luck getting someone. All he had to say was either the job is beneath your experience and or this is my budget and I can't stretch further. Do you want to take the risk? Instead he downplayed my whole career to see if I'd take their offer. My mom raises chickens and during COVID one of them got sick. Not COVID, she had it inside to feed water hourly to try to nurse it back to life. My mom has to run an errand, so I am in charge of this chicken for the afternoon. I was on a phone screening with a candidate for a position in my office and this chicken starts having a seizure and dies on the middle of this phone call. I look over and it's laying almost like it was crucified. The candidate heard the commotion and asked if everything was okay, which I replied yeah, the chicken just died. She withdrew her application the next morning. Edit: it was an office job at a NYC school. No farm experience required. Poor girl. as an interviewee. It was when I applied to a job as a junior programmer, and in 5 minutes the guy goes, "Look, I'll be honest, there is no job. You can get an internship, no pay. We offer the bus pass." As an interviewer, we posted a job opening for a senior programmer. This kid, right out of university, applied. I turned him down, but my boss made me interview him. I told him what the job was, what the expectations and technologies were, and the kid turns, stares at me and says, "Don't care about that. I want to be a project manager, and within 2 or 3 years top I expect to be offered a middle management position." I turned to my boss and told him to take it from there. I interviewed for a programmer position. They asked me to bring in a sample of a program I'd written. I brought in a simple D-based 3.1 on a disk to state it myself. LOL. Note the program itself was simple, but I was very good at documenting, notating my code, so it looked very complex when you opened up the program and looked at the code itself. They gave the disk to their current programmer guy to check it out. He took it out of the room. I continue interviewing very well with the manager. Then their guy comes back and flings literally the disk across the desk back to me and says, "You didn't write this. There's no way a secretary could do this." It's true, I was a secretary at the time, but I had read various teacher self-programming books, taken classes, and written programs as I wanted to get into IT. I absolutely did write that program. The manager and I were just dumbstruck, looking back and forth to and then at each other. The poor manager was so embarrassed. I explained that I did write it. He kept insisting I couldn't have. I gathered my things, stood up, thanked her for the interview, but told her I didn't think I'd be a good fit for their environment. In other words, you've got an A working for you and I want no part of being around him. Finished up a master's degree in physics, got a phone interview and was told it would be an introductory chat. Was confronted with a technical interview panel over the phone of 6 PhDs, 4 of which had graduated from the research group I had just left. We walked through my research project in about 10 minutes, then the pain began. Felt like I'd only learned at kindergarten physics. During college I applied for a bunch of jobs at IKEA. I got an interview followed by a rejection email. A week later they called me for another interview. I got another rejection email. They interviewed 5 times for 5 different positions. I got rejected all 5 times. I am still salty about it 2 decades later. As an applicant, I took a 50-mile train journey only to be told the job was part-time. The ad definitely said it was full-time. Interviewer got weirdly defensive when I said that was a deal-breaker, acting like I was a subordinate and getting really pissy when I stopped being deferential. Also, I've traveled 200 miles to an interview which, I found out on the day, required a presentation. They emailed about that part, but thanks to spam filters it never arrived. That was totally my fault. On reflection, I did think it was weird I hadn't been asked to do one but failed to put 2 and 2 together in time. Fresh out of college, I was looking for my first teaching job. I applied at a small district for an elementary school position. I walked in, expecting the principal and a few teachers. Instead I had the superintendent of the district, some high-level admin, and every single elementary school principal in the district, probably 15 people in all. They peppered me with questions for 45 minutes. I had 0 experience, just my student teaching. I did not get the job. Teaching interviews are rough. I had to interview with 2 principals and the entire social studies department, which was about another 7-8 people, and they don't adjust their interview structures at all. They're asking me all these different scenarios about dozens of different projects and other things that made it obvious they had no interest in hiring a newbie. Part of me was struggling to not just say, "You guys have my resume. You know I only have like 4 or 5 months teaching experience, right? Why am I here if you want a veteran teacher?" Like one question asked me to explain a time where I had to teach a student that previously failed my class. I tried working with it, but I was intimidated as it was and probably just made things worse. After that thorough ducking I received, a guy I knew who literally just reads from a PowerPoint all day got it because he coaches football, so y'all know I am in sales now, if that tells you anything about how I felt about the experience. I applied for a job in a planetarium. The interview was conducted in a big dome. Problem was, another part of the planetarium staff was doing fire alarm tests during the interview. The dome amplified the sound so much, it was deafening. The interview staff acted like nothing was going on. We had to shout so we could hear each other. Applied for a driver job that was advertised as 8-4. It was a mammal Tipley 3.5-ton vehicle my license is good for. Had a test drive and was fine. Got through the rest of the interview. Got offered the job to start the following Monday. As I started signing all the documents, the salary was lower, hours longer, and was told that it was to deliver dismantled sheds for all over the UK and that I'd be staying in hotels Monday to Friday. I just walked out. a PR position at the Jewish municipality in my hometown. A great gig, but I showed up on a wrinkled shirt, was very insecure, and at the end, the lady asked me, well, why wouldn't we hire one of our own? My grandma was Jewish, but I was too shocked at the time to say anything. I had a kid fall asleep during an interview. I was a store manager and got called out for a customer service issue. I was gone 5 minutes and I come back and he sprawled across my desk asleep. Worst one was when I interviewed for ASM position with a FedEx retail location. I get there 5-10 minutes early. They tell me the manager will be with me in a minute. I wait till 5 minutes past the scheduled interview and I ask if everything is okay. They tell me he'll be with me in a minute again. I wait another 5 minutes. I've been there 20 minutes at this point. 10 past the scheduled time. I tell them I understand if he's got a situation. I've been there, but if you would like to reschedule, I am all for it. At this point he comes out. I get the job and I should have took the interview as a clue. He lied about my responsibilities. Tried convincing me to take a lesser position. Tried to convince me to relocate to a location twice the driving distance. I had another job offer come up about a week after I started and I took it. Gave zero notice, first and only time in my life. He had the audacity to get mad at me. I told him exactly my point of view and he treated it like I was giving up the perfect job. Interviewed someone for a server's position in a club. She said she couldn't work weekends or past 8 p.m. We're a nightclub that's open from 7 p.m. till 2 a.m. From my retail crap job days, it always amazed me the people they'd end up hiring with ridiculous shift limits. Like, they'd always complain, oh, we have no one to close or work weekends but a couple of feet, then they'd keep hiring these people that had known Friday 3 p.m. availability. Was doing the whole long-term unemployed thing. Applied for a job that was being advertised by a recruiter. Surprisingly, got an interview. When I got there, it quickly became clear to me that they were asking questions I didn't understand about things I'd never done. Now, when I decide to point this out to them, the interviewer naturally asks why I listed them on my CV if I never had experience with them. The answer, of course, is that I didn't. The interview has a copy of my CV on the table that shows these particular skills listed out on it. Now, I am quite surprised at this, because the copy of my CV emailed to the recruiter doesn't have these particularly skills on it, and I naturally show that copy to them. I was the third person that day who obviously didn't know what they were talking about, and the first to actually admit it. This did not lead to a job as I was missing the skills I'd actually need to do the job at all. It did lead to a free lunch and the bus fare home, which was nice. Got an interview for a job as a floor manager at a gigantic steel foundry. I have some background in metallurgy, so I thought it'd fit. It paid $90K and I was qualified resume-wise. I got there. Turned out it was a group interview with 3 other applicants. To hear the pitch, if something messes up, the company loses $100,000, some shockingly high amount. I don't remember if it was exactly $100K per hour and it's your sole responsibility to fix it. They said you'd have to be on call 24/7 to handle anything that comes up. I got to the solo part out of curiosity and the interviewer they put me with said something to the effect of, I know this job sounds bad, but actually it's even worse. I was desperate for a job because I didn't land one straight out of college, but I was glad not to hear back from them after the interview. I don't want to dig on your qualifications, but why is that company hiring floor managers from the outside if lost time is so expensive? This seems like a job that would be better done by someone who had been working there for a while, where they would know about what usually goes wrong and stuff. I don't know anything about steel foundries, but a metallurgist seems like they would fit in better elsewhere in the company. They did specifically say that when you get started you should ask the low-level employees that have been there forever if they've seen the issue before when something happens, and they made a big deal about how they would know more than you even though you have the degree. So very good question. Why not have one of them take the job? As for metallurgists in general, I've had an internship doing very similar tasks but at a tiny foundry with only 50 or so employees. Haven't worked in straight-up metallurgy since that internship though. I do failure analysis now, but in my experience that is at least in the ballpark of something metallurgists would do. Wanted to work at HM, got interviewed by the worst person ever. One question was, and I am legit not lying, what is your favorite color and why? I answered baby blue because it's calming and not too harsh to the eyes. My interviewer then said, "Ooh, sorry, red is what we were looking for," and then proceeded to show me the exit. When I walked in as the hour lady farted too. It was a small office with no windows 3. I asked her questions about the employee retention rate that she couldn't answer for. The fart stayed the duration of the interview 5. I hope the fart got the job because I didn't want it. Dude showed up 35 minutes late for his own interview. I wanted to just cancel it and tell him too bad, but my big boss told me to go ahead since we really needed the position filled. Interview starts and he tells us he can only stay for 10 minutes since he's on call at his other job while here with us, and that technically he's supposed to be no more than 10 minutes away from his site, which is an hour away. I asked him what he'll do if he gets a call while he's at the interview. Oh, I always just turn the phone off and pretend there's bad service. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.